Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back in time, not to some grand banquet hall or dusty scroll-filled library, but to the foot of a colossal pyramid in progress. You're not a pharaoh, not a scribe, not even a priest with a shaved head and a dramatic eyeliner situation. No, tonight, you're a pyramid worker, and you've just arrived. There's sand in your shoes. The sun's already threatening violence from overhead. And somewhere nearby, someone's arguing with a donkey. It smells like baked limestone, old sweat, and lentils gone wrong. You're wondering if this was a good idea. Spoiler, it wasn't. You probably won't survive this, but let's pretend you do for now. Before we begin, if you find these stories relaxing or interesting, you can like, subscribe, share the video, or leave a comment to support the channel. Every bit of encouragement gives me the motivation to keep making videos every single day. Feel free to post your location and the local time you're listening. It's always amazing seeing where you're all drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive at the Giza Plateau during flood season, when most farms are underwater and laborers are easier to find than shade. The air buzzes with dust and the metallic ring of stone chisels. In front of you looms the half-built pyramid of Khufu, stretching toward a sky so white with heat it could peel your eyelids. Blocks the size of oxen are stacked in perfect, mind-numbing symmetry. Your first thought? That can't be human work. Your second thought? Oh no, I think I'm supposed to help finish it. The foreman, a leathery man with one eyebrow and two teeth, shouts at you in clipped, practiced commands. You're nudged toward a group of newcomers standing around a clay basin. Everyone takes turns dipping their hands in, smearing a mixture of what might be cow dung and crushed charcoal over their palms. It's some kind of ritual, or protection, or both. Someone mutters that the last guy who refused it got a heat rash shaped like the eye of Horus. You smear it on. Can't hurt. They give you a loincloth, well, more of a suggestion of one, and a thick leather belt with slots for tools. You notice everyone wears identical ones, cinched tight across their sun-hardened torsos. There's a strange equality in it. Rich or poor, farm boy or desert-born, everyone here sweats the same. You're told that this part of the site is known as the mouth, not because it looks like one, but because it swallows new workers whole. Charming. Your first few hours are spent trying to figure out where not to stand. Near the ramps, you'll get crushed. Near the oxen, you'll get kicked. Near the shade, you'll get yelled at. You settle into a sort of half-jog, half-panic gait, dodging carts, ropes, and spittle from a very angry camel. It's less like a workplace and more like a circus designed by someone who hated silence and personal space. Eventually, someone with a clipboard made of polished wood approaches you. He doesn't speak much, but he marks something next to your name, grunts approvingly at your lack of sandals, and walks off. Congratulations, you've been officially assigned. Where? You're not sure, but you follow the others anyway, trudging behind a man with shoulders like amphorae and a scar shaped like the Nile Delta. You're led downhill toward a tightly packed cluster of mud brick buildings. This is your home now. The workers' village, a temporary settlement with permanent smells. The alleys are narrow, filled with laughter, argument, and the occasional goat that definitely shouldn't be inside that kitchen. You pass a courtyard where someone is beating laundry against a slab of granite. Another worker is singing a song about onions that somehow manages to be both catchy and sad. This place isn't quiet, but there's a rhythm to it. a pulse. You feel yourself starting to sync with it. Later that evening, you watch the sun melt behind the pyramid's jagged silhouette. Workers gather in circles, eating from wooden bowls and comparing bruises. You sit near a man who claims he once saw the pharaoh's barge up close. So gold it hurt to look at, he says, then immediately starts snoring. You don't believe him, but part of you hopes it's true. You hope a lot of things are true here, because the truth you can see, the blisters, the backaches, the heat, those are already getting old. Historians still debate whether the pyramid workers were slaves, conscripted peasants, or skilled laborers with rotating contracts. The truth is likely a tangled mix. What you know for sure, however, is that everyone here has a job, a place to sleep, and at least 2 jokes about donkeys. You're told there are bakeries, breweries, even a medic who once stitched someone up using catgut and goose fat. You decide not to ask for details. Your own sleeping quarters are simple. A straw mat. A reed pillow that feels like it holds a grudge. The walls are decorated with crude sketches men hauling blocks. A stick figure pharaoh with too many arms. And something that might be a very rude baboon. You hear the night sounds creeping in. Flutes from a distant feast, the low groan of an ox settling down, and the endless whisper of wind over stone. You lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering what tomorrow will demand of you. Just before you drift off, someone outside yells something about a new recruit who looks like they'll faint by lunch. You smile, realizing they mean you. You also realize they're probably right. Morning doesn't so much arrive as it ambushes you. The sun slides over the desert like molten copper, and you wake to the smell of sweat, wet sand, and someone eating boiled chickpeas much too close to your face. There's no bell, no rooster, just the shuffle of hundreds of feet hitting the dirt in near unison, and the dull thunk of wooden mallets being checked for splinters. You're led toward the edge of the pyramid site, where assignment boards are scribbled on limestone tablets in dark red pigment. A scribe with elegant, almost fussy handwriting cross-references your name and waves you toward a cluster of workers already gathered under a tattered linen awning. This is your crew now. Welcome to the hauling gang. There are 12 of them. Some short and wiry, others big enough to make oxen look self-conscious. Each one has a nickname: Hook Toe, Fish Eyes, Hiss Breath, names earned, not chosen. You're eyed with suspicion, the way people eye a fig that looks fine on the outside, but might be crawling inside. The leader, a barrel-chested man named Kenty, gives you a once-over and nods. That's it. You're in. No ceremony, no speech, no trust. Not yet. You learn quickly that the hauling crew is a tribe within a tribe. They speak in hand gestures, grunts, and sarcastic insults that somehow translate across languages. They know how to coil a rope without looking, how to lean with the stone instead of against it, and how to make fun of a man's sandals without using a single word. One of them carries a wooden charm carved like a baboon's face, and another swears by the luck of a goat skull tied to his belt. Yes, there's a goat mascot. His name is Meru, and he's objectively the angriest goat you've ever seen. His job is unclear, but his attitude is very, very clear. Your first task is deceptively simple. Help align the rollers. These are round, polished logs laid on the ground to help move stones across the sand. You roll them into place while trying not to trip over your own feet or get crushed by a block that weighs more than a chariot. The crew moves with terrifying efficiency, like a centipede made of sunburn and sarcasm. You're not fast, but you don't complain, and that seems to earn you a fraction of their respect. A tiny fraction. Microscopic, really. Once the rollers are ready, the real work begins. A chisel-faced foreman shouts something that roughly translates to move or blade, and ropes are heaved into position. You join in, gripping the thick hemp and pulling with everything you've got. It's like trying to shift a mountain. The ropes groan, dust rises in choking clouds, and your shoulders feel like they've been stabbed by invisible hot pokers. But the block moves. Inch by inch, it slides forward with a sound that could only be described as ancient groaning. A strange rhythm develops: heave, step, release, adjust. Kenty calls out the cadence like a song, and the crew echoes back with a chant that somehow makes the pain feel ceremonial. Sun above, sweat below, Pharaoh's house will never fall. It's the kind of phrase that might be inspiring if your arms weren't on fire and your toes weren't actively rebelling. During a break, you collapse onto a water jar and try to drink without pouring half of it into your nose. Hook Toe offers you a lump of something that looks like dried mud and smells like regret. It's a fig and barley, mashed chewy, sweet, and suspiciously crunchy. Still, it keeps your knees from shaking, so you swallow it and say thank you. He responds by pretending to faint dramatically, then laughs so hard, snorts dust out of his nose. Welcome to the team. Quirky detail? The ropes you use are coated with animal fat to reduce friction and squealing. Yes, someone's job is to smear cow grease on ropes all day. You're not sure whether to be grateful or horrified. And no, the smell never fully washes off. By midday, the crew is herding a newly shaped block into alignment with others on the lower course of the pyramid. There's a hierarchy to stones, you learn. Some are destined for the outer casing smooth, white, and perfectionist approved. Others are rough and hidden deep inside. You secretly hope your block ends up visible. Immortality by limestone. It's not glamorous, but it's something. Historians still debate how the crews were divided and whether they had formal training or simply learned by brutal repetition. Some argue that families passed down holy knowledge like sacred recipes. Others think it was more chaotic, a matter of brute strength and surviving your first week without losing a finger. Back on the site, the foreman suddenly calls for a shoulder check. Everyone strips off their belts, rotates their arms, and shows their backs. He inspects for bruises that look too deep and blisters too soft. Anyone who looks close to breaking is sent to carry water jars, instead less glorious, more survivable. You manage to pass, mostly because you've kept your screaming internal. Later that afternoon, a scribe arrives with a scroll and a pot of red ink. He's doing head counts and injury tallies. You notice he's wearing sandals, fancy ones, the kind that mean, I don't lift things. Kenty nudges you and whispers that the scribes are the real bosses here, not the overseers, not the architects. If they forget your name, you might as well be a ghost. You nod solemnly. Then he grins, so yell it often, loud and clear, especially if you do something impressive. The day winds down in a haze of sore legs and dusty laughter. The final block is secured in place, and the crew slaps one another on the back like warriors returning from battle. You receive your first genuine smile from Fish Eyes, who promptly ruins it by tossing a beetle down your tunic. It's a rite of passage. Probably. As the sky cools from blistering white to a hazy pink, you're released. Not so much dismissed as simply allowed to wander off before you collapse. You pass other crews' mud gatherers, surveyors, ramp builders, all shouting in overlapping waves of exhaustion and pride. Somewhere, someone is playing a reed flute off key. It sounds like hope and bad breath. You reach your dorm just as the stars begin to twinkle. Your hands are raw, your shoulders ache, and your legs feel like they were sculpted by a drunk mason. And yet, something inside you hums with the rhythm of ancient purpose. A pyramid is rising, and you helped. You wake to the smell of limestone dust and sweat-soaked linen, your back glued to the reed mat, every muscle filing a formal complaint. Today you're told you're headed to the quarries. There's no ceremony, just a shout from Kenty and a gesture sharp enough to cut through dreams. You groan, but you get up, because nobody ignores a quarry shift and walks straight afterward. The walk out to the eastern quarries takes a while, longer if you're limping, which half the crew is. The rising sun throws long shadows over the desert, and the pyramid behind you looms like a patient god. You trudge through uneven terrain, the crunch of gravel underfoot and the creak of wooden sledges being dragged by other gangs ahead of you. The smell here changes less people, more stone. It's drier, sharper, and oddly clean, almost sacred. Not because of any holy presence, but because nothing here is soft enough to rot. The limestone quarry is an open wound in the desert. Pale walls hacked and scarred, edges marked with chisels, pickaxes, and scars from bronze tools duller than your current mood. You're handed a hammer and a copper chisel, neither of which feels adequate for the task. You're shown how to mark the seams, where the natural fissures run, how to tap gently before you strike hard. It feels more like coaxing a secret from the stone than breaking it. Or so you tell yourself, trying to sound poetic about what is essentially several hours of sweaty, echoing violence. The noise here is relentless. Chisels clanging like angry bells, men shouting measurements, the occasional curse that translates across languages with alarming clarity. You crouch near one of the older workers, a man with a nose like a vulture's beak, who taps, wedges, taps again, then gently inserts a wooden dowel. He pours water on it. You stare, confused, until the wood begins to swell. The pressure cracks the stone with a muted groan. It's a trick passed down from generations, and somehow it feels like magic. Old, dusty magic. He grins, one tooth left, and says, "The rock listens?" If you ask loud enough. Quirky detail? Quarry crews sometimes sang to keep rhythm, not majestic hymns, but nonsense songs about onions, goats, and the misfortunes of people named Nebtu. One popular chant includes a verse about a man, so clumsy he accidentally chiseled his own foot and blamed it on a lizard. Your job for now is transporting smaller fragments to the sledges. You learn to balance weight on your shoulders using a flat reed mat tied with rope. After 2 hours, you've cursed gravity, your feet, and whoever invented blocks. Your hands are raw again. Someone hands you a bit of cloth soaked in vinegar to wrap them. It stings and you yelp, which earns a chorus of mock sympathy from the crew. Careful, Kenty says with a grin. Too many screams and the blocks might get ideas. Historians still debate how precisely the Egyptians managed such clean cuts in limestone, using only copper tools and elbow grease. Some propose abrasive sand techniques or clever levering systems lost to time. Others believe the workforce's sheer scale made up for what they lacked in metallurgy. But from where you're standing sweaty, bruised, and slightly delirious, it's clear that whatever system they used, it was brutal and brilliant in equal measure. Breaks are short. Water's passed around in porous chugs They keep it just cool enough to not taste like tears. You chew on dried dates and crushed lentils rolled in barley husk, which feel like chewing dust, but sweeter. Then back to it. More chipping, more hauling. You develop an instinct for listening to the stone when it's ready to break, when it's not worth the effort. There's something satisfying about the rhythm. The crack. The silence that follows a good break. By midday, your crew celebrates pulling out a large, usable block. It takes 8 men just to pivot it onto the wooden sled. You're not on that team yet, but you're allowed to help lash the ropes around it. There's a specific knot they teach you, something called a Pharaoh's knot, though you suspect someone made up that name for flair. Still, it holds, and that's what matters. The sled groans under the weight, but begins to move. Suddenly, Baru the goat bolts from a shady corner, crashing into the legs of a loader and sending him sprawling into a pile of chips. Everyone laughs, even the foreman. The goat, smug as ever, returns to his post as if nothing happened. No one scolds him. In fact, someone gives him a fig. By evening, the sleds begin their slow, treacherous journey back to the pyramid site. You walk beside them, dragging your legs through ankle-deep sand, your whole body moving more from memory than willpower. A block you helped wrestle from the earth is now crawling toward immortality. That feels like something, doesn't it? Just before you arrive back at the workers' camp, Kenty stops you. He claps your shoulder, nods once, and says, "You didn't break." It's the highest compliment you've heard all week. You reach your bunk and fall onto the mat like a sack of broken pottery. As your breathing slows, you picture the quarry under the stars, cool and silent now. A place of destruction, yes, but also of creation. The bones of the earth pulled out to build something that will stand longer than your name will be remembered. That might sound poetic, but here, even the poetry carries blisters. Your legs still feel like wet reeds when you wake, and your arms have the pleasant rigidity of bricks mortared in place. But there's no time for that. Today, you're told, is a river day. And no, not for swimming. You're going to help load limestone blocks onto boats and pray to every available deity that none of them sink on the way to Giza. You trudge down toward the Nile, accompanied by 24 men and 3 oxen who look like they've seen some things. The path is winding and slippery with silt, and the morning light reflects off the water like molten gold. You blink, half awake, and try not to step into something squishy. The river smells of damp earth, rotting papyrus, and the distant promise of fish stew. It's a strange comfort. At the riverbank, the transport boats wait. They're broad and flat, built from thick wood and lashed tight with rope thick enough to tow a chariot. Each one can hold several blocks if you balance them right. If you don't, well, the crocodiles aren't picky about what kind of meat they eat. The loading process is chaos disguised as choreography. A scribe calls out weights and destination tiers. These blocks are destined for the base of the pyramid, those for the inner vault. That one over there apparently has a crack that no one wants to deal with. You fall in line behind a team, pushing a massive sledge down the bank, its runners greased with animal fat. You're handed a pry bar and told to help lever the block into place. The entire platform creaks, shifts, and lets out a sound like the river itself protesting. One slip of the plank, and you're ankle-deep in Nile muck, soaked and suddenly much more alert. The others laugh. One man pretends to throw a rope to help you, then tucks it behind his back. Classic quarry humor. Eventually, someone does help, though not before making a bet that you'd be the first one in. Apparently, he won 2 onions and half a beer over it. You're flattered. Sort of. As you work, you notice the boatmasters, lean, leathery men with forearms, like coiled rope eyeing every block like suspicious priests. They adjust weights, mutter about balance, and occasionally throw in a palm leaf wedge for good luck. One even ties a tiny figurine of Tourette, the hippo goddess of childbirth, to the prow. Keeps the boat from birthing a disaster, he says with a grin. You don't question it. This is clearly a system run by experience, superstition, and stubbornness in equal measure. Quirky detail? Some boat crews insist that singing keeps the boat stable. One man leads a chant. It's basically a list of foods he misses: duck stew, honey cakes, roasted eel, while others join in and add their own culinary dreams. It's weirdly effective. Once loaded, the boats push off into the slow-moving river. You're on one of them now, kneeling beside the cargo like an anxious frog. The current is gentle, but every time the boat rocks, your stomach does a little death spiral. Across the water, you see other rafts gliding along, each carrying blocks pulled from the same earth, headed toward the same impossible monument. The trip to Giza isn't long, but it feels like a lifetime. The Nile shimmers and churns, full of invisible currents and the occasional flash of scales beneath the surface. You clutch the edge of the boat and try not to think about crocodiles, or slipping, or tipping, or that one legend about a priest whose tombstone now lies somewhere under the riverbed because his block was cursed. Probably made up. Probably. Historians still debate exactly how blocks were transported. Some suggest large papyrus rafts with ballast techniques. Others argue for barges built in workshops near Memphis. There's even evidence that water may have been poured ahead of sledges on land to reduce friction. But for now, all you know is the river carries weight like a mother carries a child grudgingly, carefully, and occasionally with biting teeth. The boat pulls up to a receiving ramp where yet another crew waits arms crossed, unimpressed. You help untie the bindings, roll the block forward, and then thud, it hits the sand. One of the oxen snorts approvingly. Or maybe it's annoyed. You can never tell with oxen. Your job for the rest of the afternoon is repeat delivery. Back to the river, load another block, boat it upstream, unload, return. It's a dance you learn quickly, if not gracefully. Your hands are permanently damp. Your back feels like it's being twisted into new shapes. You think your knees might be plotting to secede. On the 4th trip, something strange happens. A breeze picks up, cool, soft, from the west. And for a brief moment, the sun hits the pyramid just right, making it glow like it's made of fire and light instead of sweaty limestone. Even the boatmen stop and stare. It's easy to forget that you're building something legendary. Easy to get lost in the ache of your body. But then it reminds you, and you feel a little less tired. Not a lot. Just enough to keep rowing. You return to camp long after sunset, the stars already bright, and your feet squelching in river-slick sandals. The others joke that you're becoming Ark Crocodile. One man hisses at you with a toothy grin. Another offers you a dried fish as a peace offering and eats it before you can accept. You lie down that night and swear the mattress rocks with the rhythm of the river. It's not uncomfortable. In fact, it's the first time your body feels like it's still floating. Only this time, there's no chance of falling in. You trudge back to the pyramid site before sunrise, your legs pulsing with the memory of yesterday's hauling, your shoulders stiff with invisible splinters of effort. This morning, they've told you you'll be working the ramp. You already know what that means. You saw it from afar yesterday. Those steep, snaking slopes built from packed mud, gravel, and limestone chippings, winding up and around the sides of the pyramid like a coiled serpent. From a distance, it almost looked graceful. From where you're standing now, close enough to taste the chalky dust on your tongue, it looks like a challenge issued by the gods themselves. They assign you to a transport crew with 20 men and a pair of oxen, all of whom seem to be sizing you up. You can hear the unspoken question in their glances. Will you pull, or will you get pulled under? The block you've been tasked with is enormous, easily the size of a small hut. A casing stone, they say. White limestone, freshly quarried, smoothed on 3 sides, gleaming in the early light like a tooth pried from the mouth of the earth. It's destined for the lower levels of the north face, where the base rows must be perfect. Visibility, after all, is everything. The pharaoh's afterlife reputation depends on how sharply his tomb catches the sun. The ropes are thick and dark, with grease-left-over animal fat, rubbed in to soften the fibers and reduce the brutal squeal of tension. Your hands sink into them reluctantly. The smell clings, somewhere between smoked meat and week-old butter, and no matter how often you wipe them on your kilt, it won't leave you. You lean into the rope, plant your feet into the ramp's loose surface, and pull. So do the others. At first, nothing. The block sits like a sleeping beast. Then, slowly, with groans and reluctant jerks, it moves. The ascent is slow, uneven, punishing. Every meter takes your breath. The ramp feels steeper with each step, though you suspect the angle hasn't changed, only your optimism. Dust kicks up in clouds with every movement, coating your face, your arms, your tongue. You blink through it. The sun climbs higher, and your vision narrows to a tunnel of motion and muscle, rope and sweat. You don't know how long you've been pulling. Minutes? Hours? A lifetime? The rhythm, when it comes, is almost musical bodies rising and falling in sync, heels digging in, arms straining in waves. Kenti, the barrel-chested leader you've come to respect, chants under his breath. Not words, exactly, but a tempo. Others echo it in grunts. One man hums a strange tune about a goose that refused to be cooked. You all laugh, even as your lungs burn. Somehow, it helps. Just before the halfway point, disaster nearly strikes. One of the side ramps collapses slightly under the block's weight, a patch of loose stone giving way in a silent landslide of gravel. The block tips. For a heartbeat, the entire crew is still. You can hear the strain in the ropes, the oxen shifting their weight uneasily, the deep silence of people bracing for a death that might arrive in the next breath. But the lead handlers react fast, wedging 2 thick beams under the slipping side. The block steadies. Kenti roars something that might be praise or panic. Either way, you survive. Historians still debate the precise methods used to raise blocks up the massive heights of the Great Pyramid. Some propose long straight ramps that stretched out for miles. Others suggest switchback paths that spiraled upward like giant corkscrews. Some even believe in internal ramps, hidden within the structure itself. But none of those theories mention the sweat in your eyes, or the ache in your hips, or the way your heart threatens to leap from your chest every time the rope jerks unexpectedly. At one point, a scribe walks past the ramp, inspecting the crews with an air of detached authority. His linen robe is pristine, not a single speck of dust, which is frankly offensive. He carries a scroll and a reed pen, taking notes with an almost theatrical flourish. You wonder if he's writing your name, or your height, or whether your block looks slightly off-center. You try to stand straighter and realize you physically can't. Your spine has temporarily quit. Breaks are rare on the ramp. They're not scheduled. They're earned, like battle medals or scars. You get one near the top of the segment, where the ramp flattens for a brief, glorious stretch. Water is passed around in sun-warmed jugs, the clay still damp from being buried in the sand overnight. The beer they offer is thick again, somewhere between drink and chew, but it coats your throat and makes the dust settle. You chew on barley bread, crusty and still carrying the scent of the fire it was baked on. Someone passes you a fig, soft and sticky, and for one fleeting moment, you feel like a person again. There's a quiet joy in sitting on a shaded outcropping of stone, watching the work crews below you moving like ants. A small team hauls smaller blocks up a side path. A group of oxen stares mournfully into the middle distance, chewing cud with existential boredom. Two boys dart between crews carrying messages, their feet light, their faces serious. One of them slips, recovers, and keeps running. You watch it all and realize that, for better or worse, this city of movement doesn't stop. You're called back to your post. The final ascent begins. The last few meters are the hardest, not because of distance, but because your arms no longer feel like arms. They're lead pipes. Your legs are sandbags, but the stone moves and you move with it. And then suddenly, you're there. The block settles into place with a deep, satisfying thud. It aligns perfectly with its neighbors, and you feel the soft applause of feet on gravel as the crew releases their ropes and breathes again. Someone claps her back. Another mutters, "Didn't think you'd last." Kenty grins and says, "Still ugly, though," and you almost laugh yourself into tears. You descend slowly, legs trembling, mouth dry. Below, the sun is setting, casting the pyramid in golden light. From this angle, you see the perfect geometry of it, how the blocks form lines that stretch toward eternity. And somewhere in that massive, glinting face is your stone. You helped place it. It will outlive you. It might outlive memory. Back in the village, you collapse onto your mat without removing your belt. Someone has placed a bowl of lentils by your side, and you eat without tasting. You're halfway asleep when someone begins humming that same goose song from earlier. Others join in. It's ridiculous, tuneless, and oddly soothing. You smile into your blanket, and the pyramid looms behind your closed eyes, endless, heavy, and somehow yours. You wake to the sensation of linen sticking to your skin, and a dream still clinging to the back of your mind. Something about a stone block chasing you down a ramp, while laughing in the voice of Kenty. The air inside the sleeping quarters is thick with the smell of sweat, dust, and yesterday's barley beer. And when you swing your legs over the edge of your mat, every joint creaks like a badly tied sled rope. Outside, the light hasn't quite shifted from silver to gold, and there's a strange stillness in the village, as if the entire camp is holding its breath before the day begins. Today, they tell you, you'll be joining the finishing crews, the ones responsible for the casing stones. Not hauling, not quarrying, not shouting at oxen who refuse to be impressed. This work is quieter, slower, and somehow even more intense. The casing stones, they say, are the pyramid's face. The body might be built by bruises and bruised egos, but the face must be perfect. You're led to the northern slope, where white limestone blocks gleaming even under the pale morning haze form neat rows in precise angles. This is where the master stone fitters work. They crouch like sculptors, smoothing the faces of the stones with copper chisels, sandstone rubbers, and flint blades honed to a whisper-thin edge. Their movements are deliberate, rhythmic, almost meditative. No one here yells. No one jokes. This is sacred work. They hand you a rubbing stone and motion toward a half-shaped casing block. Your task: smooth the outer surface until it gleams. It sounds simple. It is not. The limestone is soft, yes, but it drinks your energy. Each pass with the rubbing stone is a negotiation, a small war between human will and geological indifference. The stone doesn't care who you are or how tired your arms are. It only responds to patience. There's an art to it. You have to feel for tiny ridges with your fingertips, find the grain of the limestone and move with it, not against it. If you go too fast, you chip it. If you press too hard, you scar the surface. You find yourself breathing in rhythm with your strokes, heart slowing, thoughts narrowing to a single point. Around you, others work the same way, silent, slow, meticulous. It's less like labor and more like prayer. One man beside you has been doing this for over 20 years. He's known only as Sebek's hand. You watch as he polishes a casing stone to a mirror finish, then runs his fingers across it with reverence. His hands are thick with scars, but his touch is impossibly gentle. He hums while he works, not a tune exactly, more a vibration that seems to settle into your bones. Eventually, you start humming too, not because you want to, but because somehow it feels necessary. Mid-morning, a cart arrives from the main quarry bearing another load of white limestone. As it's unloaded, one of the blocks breaks in half. Everyone winces. The cart puller, a wiry boy with nervous eyes, immediately drops to his knees, apologizing to the foreman in a stammer. But the foreman only sighs, gestures for the broken block to be set aside, and returns to his work. The broken pieces, you're told, will be used in the interior fill. Nothing is wasted. Even failure becomes part of the pyramid. As you continue smoothing the stone, you begin to notice something odd. Some of the casing blocks seem to shimmer slightly in the light, not just because they're white, but because someone, somewhere along the line, had added crushed shell fragments to the mix when polishing. Whether by accident or design, the result is striking. Under the midday sun, the pyramid doesn't just reflect light, it glows. One of the older men calls it the Pharaoh's Lighthouse. He claims it can be seen from the edge of the desert when the sun hits just right. You don't doubt it, not after seeing it up close. There's another story passed around during the midday break about a block once polished so perfectly that a high priest demanded it be covered until nightfall so it wouldn't blind the workers. Whether that's true or not, you'll never know. But when you glance over at Sebek's hand and see your own sun-warmed reflection faintly mirrored in the stone he's just finished, you start to believe the pyramid is made of magic as much as mortar. Historians still argue whether the Great Pyramid was ever fully encased in polished white limestone from base to tip. Some say yes, citing ancient texts that speak of a shining beacon. Others claim erosion, theft, and time stripped most of it away before it was even finished. But standing here, holding a rubbing stone slick with limestone dust, you know what you see. And you know that many someones have labored to make this thing gleam like a second sun. As the afternoon wanes, your hands are raw, your arms numb, and your face streaked with fine white powder. But the block before you is smooth now, no longer a quarried chunk of stone, but a finished tile in the world's grandest puzzle. A bird lands nearby some desert thing with a crest like a crown, and pecks once at the stone, then flies away as if inspecting your work. You take it as a good omen. The sun begins its descent, turning the pyramid's face from white fire to warm gold. The polishing crews pack up their tools, wrapped carefully in linen, never dropped, and file down the ramps without speaking. There's a kind of ritual in their silence, an understanding that what they've touched today will remain long after their bones have turned to dust. You follow them down, your body aching, your chest oddly light. There's something satisfying about this kind of tiredness, the kind that comes not from surviving the work, but from shaping something bigger than yourself. You imagine the pharaoh, wherever he is, resting in some perfumed room, surrounded by lotus flowers and cool stone walls, never knowing your name. And yet, when his tomb shines beneath the sun, a sliver of that light will carry your fingerprint. In the quiet of evening, as the sky deepens into violet, you run a hand across your sleeve and discover it sparkles faintly. Limestone dust clings to your skin, to your hair, to the creases of your hands. You look at the pyramid one more time before returning to the camp, and it's glowing, truly glowing, like the sun is bowing to it. You think, perhaps, the gods are watching, and for once, they might be impressed. The pyramid doesn't sleep, but you do, eventually. After a dinner of lentils and yesterday's barley loaf softened with warm beer, your body gives in. You curl onto your mat, limbs heavy, lungs still half full of dust and stone powder, and drift into a dreamless rest. But the pyramid keeps growing in your absence. While you sleep, others are hauling, carving, polishing, measuring. Somewhere, ropes creak. Somewhere, a foreman barks his calculations. Somewhere, a new stone settles into place with a deep, final sound. When you wake, the air is cool and gray, the sky smeared with the memory of stars. You're told today is measurement day, rare chance to see how the pieces fit, not just physically, but mathematically. You suppress a groan. This sounds suspiciously like mental labor, the kind you're least prepared for. But they don't hand you scrolls or ask you to recite numbers. Instead, they guide you up the pyramid's northern face to join a survey team already marking chalk lines with careful precision. You discover quickly that building a pyramid is not just about brute strength. It's about alignment, angles, ratios. Every block, every one, is placed according to a grander plan. The base must be level to within a fraction of a finger's width. The sides must rise at a consistent slope. The corners must meet precisely, or the entire illusion of symmetry collapses. It's dizzying to consider, especially on less than 8 hours of stiff-packed sleep. The master measurer, an older man with one eye and a braided leather strap for a belt, shows you how to use a plumb bob, a simple tool with a weighted string. He drops it from a horizontal beam and watches the tip hover millimeters from a carved guideline on the stone face. He grunts, satisfied. You're not sure what you were supposed to be seeing, but you nod solemnly anyway. They mark reference points using red ochre mixed with water, brushing it carefully onto the limestone as if it were sacred ink. And in a way, it is. These lines guide the teams who will place the next stones, chisel the next slope, polish the next face. One mistake here ripples upward, compounding until the peak itself wobbles. You help carry bundles of rods straight lengths of copper, used to check alignments, and follow the team from one corner to the next. At each station, a boy records the results on a clay tablet, scratching notes with a stylus faster than you can process what's being said. They measure angles against the horizon using a shadow clock, essentially a carved stick stuck upright in the sand, tracking its shadow's path. Crude, maybe, but the results? Astoundingly precise. There's a moment when one team member pauses, wipes sweat from his brow, and mutters that the southwest corner is 3 hand-widths too far out. The survey master narrows his eye and rechecks. He doesn't yell. He just points once. The crew sets down their tools and begins discussing. You expect tension, even blame. But there is none. Only problem solving. Only the quiet acknowledgement that the pyramid's geometry is a living thing, and it must be groomed like a prized animal. You begin to understand how these people, with no modern machines, no digital calculations, no lasers or drones, are building something that will last millennia. It's not just labor, it's obsession. There's an odd story told during the midday rest about a measuring team who used a cat to help with alignment. Supposedly, the cat would walk straight lines between corner markers, naturally gravitating toward the shortest path. The crew swore by it. Others dismissed it as nonsense. But when you see one of the workers offer a saucer of milk to a sleek, sun-colored cat who's lounging suspiciously near the chalk lines, you begin to wonder. Especially when the cat stretches, walks straight across the block face, and stops exactly where the red ochre line ends. In the afternoon, you're assigned to hold the leveling staff along. Marked stick used to compare block heights from one layer to the next. Your arms ache, but you hold it steady. The surveyor peers through a simple sighting frame, a rectangular wooden grid, and calls out. Instructions. Left, right, down. Perfect. You shift only slightly with each command. But you know these minor adjustments mean the difference between enduring architecture and ruin. Historians still debate how exactly the pyramid's geometry was calculated with such precision. Some believe they used the stars Orion's belt, specifically as a celestial guide. Others suggest ground-level techniques, using water levels and plumb lines were enough. A few fringe voices argue for knowledge, lost from a civilization older than Egypt itself. But here, holding this wooden staff, you're less inclined to believe in ancient aliens and more in patient, sunburned men who cared too much about doing things right. Late in the day, you help check one of the foundation blocks on the west side, a massive slab nearly as tall as you, tucked into the bedrock itself. The line drawn across it runs perfectly straight, undistorted even after weeks of heat and settling. The crew nods, almost reverently. Someone taps the stone twice with a copper hammer, not to test it, but in thanks. As the sun dips, the chalk lines glow faintly, almost pink under the light. The pyramid casts long, angular shadows that stretch across the sand like arrows. You sit on a half-finished step and run your fingers across one of the red ochre marks. It smears slightly. You quickly wipe your hand and hope no one noticed. The survey team packs their tools with quiet satisfaction. Nothing celebratory. Just the calm of a job done well, a layer set properly. You carry the rods back down the slope, your feet slipping slightly in the fine dust that coats everything. The wind is starting to pick up now, brushing grit into your ears, your mouth, your clothes. Back in the village, the day's measurements become a topic of discussion. One man claims he once saw a pyramid builder draw a perfect circle freehand with just a string and a stick. Another jokes that the master measurer's single eye sees straighter than two. You sit quietly, sore and oddly proud, feeling for the first time not just like a mover of stones, but a participant in a kind of stone-bound symphony. You lie on your mat, the stars already sharp above you, and close your eyes to visions of lines and angles, chalk dust and ochre, the hum of precision and the heartbeat of a project too massive to grasp all at once. The pyramid is still there in your mind, layer by perfect layer, and for once, sleep comes easy. Today begins before the light does. You're shaken awake not by a shout, but by the sound of low horns echoing across the plateau. A signal, not danger, but ceremony. You rub your eyes, still heavy with yesterday's dust, and pull on your linen wrap. Around you, others are stirring, muttering, gathering tools, tucking cloth over their heads. There's a hushed energy in the air, the kind that prickles your skin. It's festival day, but it's not a holiday not for you, at least. It's a foundation ritual. One of those sacred observances when priests arrive to inspect the worksite, perform rites, and remind the laborers that this monument is not just stone and sweat. It is a tomb, a vessel, a bridge between the pharaoh and the gods. You've heard the term before, House of Eternity. It sounded like poetry. But now, with incense in the air and banners unfurling along the ramp, it feels more like responsibility. They gather you and the others at the pyramid's southern edge, where a wide platform has been swept clean of dust and debris. The priests are already in place, tall men in leopard skin cloaks, eyes rimmed with kohl, faces unreadable. One carries a brazier spilling fragrant smoke into the air. Another holds a carved ibis-headed staff, symbol of Thoth. You've seen these figures from afar, walking stiffly through camps, like they were too holy to breathe the same air. Up close, they look just as intimidating. The foreman instructs your team to kneel, and you do. The sand is warm beneath your knees. A priest begins chanting low and steady, in a rhythm that feels ancient, even if you don't understand the words. As he walks the perimeter of the pyramid's base, trailing incense smoke and soft prayers, the others pour a line of water around the structure, mimicking the boundaries of the Nile. You realize it's symbolic, creating a sacred island, as if the pyramid were rising from the primeval flood. A clay jar is passed forward, and each laborer is told to place something inside, a personal item, something from home. You hesitate. What do you have that isn't covered in dust or sweat? Finally, you remove a small bead from your neck string, a worn blue amulet given to you by your sister before you left your village. You place it in the jar, heart thudding. It clinks against a shell, a carved fish, a strip of woven cloth. They tell you the jar will be buried in the foundation, that it will stay there forever. The ceremony continues. Bread is broken. Beer is poured not drunk, but spilled in measured offerings along the pyramid's edge. A bull is led forward, blindfolded, adorned in garlands. Its hooves hesitate against the stone. You brace yourself, fearing the blade, but instead the animal is turned aside and led toward a separate enclosure. Today is symbolic, bloodless. The gods, it seems, are feeling generous. Afterward, the priests retreat to a shaded tent, and the foreman dismiss the crowd. But the tone of the day has shifted. You can feel it in the way people walk slower, quieter, more careful. The pyramid feels more alive. Not just a monument now, but a vessel full of meaning. You're assigned to the burial chamber shift, deep inside the structure, Beneath layer upon layer of perfectly placed stone, teams of workers are carving the passageways and chambers that will eventually house the pharaoh himself. The air grows cooler as you descend, the light dimmer. Torches flicker on the walls, casting shadows that seem to shift even when no one moves. The corridors are narrow, the ceilings low. You duck constantly. Inside the central chamber, the granite is darker, heavier. The blocks here aren't limestone. They're deep red Aswan stone, hauled hundreds of miles upriver. Harder to cut, harder to move, harder to shape, but worth it. Granite is the pharaoh's bedrock. Immovable, eternal. You take a chisel and join the others in smoothing the inside of the king's resting place. The air tastes of stone dust and smoke. Every strike of your chisel echoes too long, like it doesn't want to end. There's something unnerving about working here. Not just the silence, but the weight. You feel it in your chest, as if the pyramid knows what it's being built for. The foreman gives quiet instructions. This beam must be perfectly level. This wall must be polished smooth enough to hold a reflection. He holds a copper mirror up to the granite and scowls when it comes back blurry. You polish harder. Somewhere deep in the chamber, another worker mutters a quick prayer to Anubis. You notice a charm tied around his wrist, a scrap of gold foil etched with protective symbols. You have your own talisman tucked into your sash. Suddenly, it feels woefully inadequate. There's a rumor among the chamber workers that one of the passageways is cursed, that if you carve into the wrong block, it bleeds black dust and whispers your name. You laugh at first, but not for long. That same day, one of the torchbearers swears she heard voices echoing behind her, though no one followed. She refuses to go back alone. Historians still argue whether these fears were born from religious belief or simple superstition. Some say the pyramid was a machine for transformation, turning the pharaoh into a star. Others insist it was just a royal tomb, albeit a massive one. But down here, in the darkness, that debate feels distant. The chamber breathes. It remembers. You leave the interior chambers late in the afternoon, squinting as you emerge into sunlight. The festival music has returned, drums, pipes, tambourines made from animal skins stretched tight. Some workers dance near the ramp base, kicking up dust in wild circles. A man juggles smooth stones while balancing a pot of beer on his head. Children from the nearby worker village clap in rhythm, eyes wide. The mood has shifted again. The gods have been fed. The pyramid has been blessed. Now it's time to celebrate. You join the crowd at the fire pit, watching as skewers of riverfish roast over crackling flames. Someone hands you a fresh fig and a small cup of sweet date beer. You sip, and for the first time all week, it tastes like more than calories. It tastes like relief. As the sun dips behind the horizon, the pyramid seems to glow again, not from its polished face, but from within. From the firelight reflecting off its lower edges, from the laughter drifting up its flanks, from the thousands of fingerprints pressed into every stone. You watch as a priest, no longer in full regalia, joins a group of workers to sing a bawdy song about a crocodile and a priestess. The boundaries between sacred and profane dissolve in the amber light. That night, before sleep claims you, you lie on your mat and trace the calluses on your hands. You think of your amulet, now buried in the pyramid's bones. You think of the bull, the chants, the mirror held to granite. And you wonder, when the pharaoh lies in that chamber at last, will he hear your breath in the stone around him? The next morning, the worksite buzzes with rumors. A royal delegation is approaching. Not just priests this time, or scribes with endless scrolls, but men from the palace itself, architects, overseers, possibly even someone who has spoken with the pharaoh. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand mid-breakfast, crumbs of barley bread still clinging to your fingers, and squint toward the desert edge. A thin cloud of dust trails in the distance, the kind made not by oxen or laborers, but by polished wheels and horses bred for ceremony, not load-bearing. You're not told to clean the site, exactly, but everything is cleaner anyway. Buckets are moved, tools are aligned. The goat that usually roams too close to the polishing stations is tethered somewhere discreet. The block movers continue as always. Stone doesn't pause for royal shoes, but there's a subtle urgency in every step, a quiet desire to impress, or at least avoid being noticed in the wrong way. You're assigned to a demonstration crew, a carefully chosen team meant to showcase the methods used to position and level the massive blocks. As if lifting tons of rock while sweating through dust-stiffened linen weren't already enough, now you must do it gracefully, with poise, like a priest at a temple altar. By mid-morning, the delegation arrives. 6 men in elaborate collars and crisp kilts dismount from their chariots and begin strolling the site. Their feet barely seem to touch the ground. They speak in clipped tones, examining everything with a kind of detached fascination. One of them tall, hawk-nosed, with a kind of posture that suggests he's never lifted anything heavier than a scroll, leans down to inspect the edges of a casing stone. He brushes the surface with his fingers, nods, and writes something on his wax tablet. The foreman stiffens. You stand perfectly still, chisel frozen mid-mark. For a moment, even the wind dies. But then the tall man straightens, murmurs something approving, and the whole crew exhales as one. You resume your task, gently tapping a limestone block into final alignment using a long wooden mallet, cushioned by leather to prevent cracking. Every strike echoes up the pyramid's slope, bouncing from stone to stone like a heartbeat. One of the younger officials is visibly impressed. He walks around asking questions, not to the foreman, but to the workers. You. He asks what it's like to sleep near the pyramid, whether you believe it makes dreams louder. You pause, unsure if this is a trick. Then you answer, honestly, that sometimes the dreams don't stop, even after you wake up. He smiles like that's the answer he wanted. Then, without prompting, he removes a small token from his belt, a palm-sized stone carved into the shape of a falcon, and hands it to you. For your sister, he says, before disappearing into the next cluster of workers. Later, during the new rest, everyone crowds around to admire it. It's beautifully carved, wings tucked, eyes sharp, probably meant to represent Horus. But the way the others look at you, you'd think you'd been personally blessed. Even Kenti, who never compliments anyone, mutters something about it being almost worthy of a shrine. You wrap the token in a strip of linen and tuck it deep into your bundle. That afternoon, the delegation holds a meeting with the site architects atop a wooden scaffolding just off the eastern side. You're too far to hear the details, but their gestures suggest both excitement and concern. Some point upward, toward the narrowing layers of the pyramid's rise. Others toward the slope of the ramps. A few look skyward, as though the gods might weigh in. Historians have long speculated about how the final layers of the pyramid were managed, especially the uppermost tiers, where space narrows and ramps become impractical. Did they dismantle the larger ramps and build smaller ones just to reach the tip? Did they construct internal passageways, now lost to time? Or did they, as some fringe theorists whisper, use counterweights and pulleys in ways we've yet to rediscover? Whatever the truth, the tension in the architect's faces suggests the top is not yet solved. Back in your dormitory, word spreads fast. Some say the royal officials are demanding faster progress. Others say they're pleased and might reward certain crews with extra beer rations. One rumor claims a scribe sent back to the capital with a message written in gold ink. No one knows what it says. Someone jokes that it just says, "More stone, less complaining." By evening, the delegation is gone, their chariots swallowed by the horizon, but the energy lingers. Everyone works a little faster. The stone haulers double their efforts. The casing polishers hum louder. The marking crew uses brighter ochre. The goat is still missing, but no one seems to mind. You spend the twilight hours near the western base, smoothing the last layer of a slope with a sandstone block. As you press and rub in wide arcs, you catch a reflection barely visible, more impression than image. Still, it's enough. Enough to make you wonder if someday, when the furrow is sealed inside and the ages roll on, someone will look at this same stone and see the ghost of your hands. The stars are bright again by the time you return to your mat. The falcon token lies warm beneath your pillow. You trace its wings with your fingertip, and for once, you don't dream of falling blocks or endless ramps. You dream of flight. The winds pick up overnight. You wake to the sound of canvas, flapping like sails and dust hissing as it races across the stone. It's not a storm, at least. Not yet, but the kind of wind that gets into your ears, your nose, your teeth. The kind that makes your bones ache even before the work begins. The pyramid looms as always, but today it wears a veil of grit, its edges blurred by swirling sand. The foremen make a show of calm, but you notice extra linen wrapped around faces, more water skins carried to the site, and a few nervous glances skyward. When the wind turns like this, accidents multiply. Ropes fray faster. Oxen spook. Stone behaves differently, more brittle when cold, more stubborn when dry. You shoulder your tools with quiet dread. Your assignment today is with the repair crew patching damaged sections of the access ramp and repositioning blocks that have shifted slightly out of alignment. At first glance, it sounds simple, but you quickly learn that there is no such thing as simple in pyramid work. Each adjustment requires planning, recalculating, and occasionally roping in a half dozen workers just to budge a stone the width of a thumb. One block near the base has sunk slightly, its foundation weakened by weeks of wear and water runoff. You're tasked with raising it again, just enough to place new support beneath. That means clearing debris, digging around the base, and sliding a flat wooden lever underneath. It also means trusting the two men above you not to drop anything while you're nose deep in the earth beside a slab the size of a chariot. As you work, the wind whistles down the ramp corridors. It doesn't just blow, it sings. A high, reedy tone that fluctuates with the gaps between blocks. One of the workers jokes that the pyramid is speaking today. Another responds that it's complaining about your technique. Everyone laughs, but quietly. After hours of levering and wedging, the block lifts. Not by much, barely the width of 2 fingers. But it's enough. You slide in a new layer of gravel, pack it with a long wooden tamper, and let the stone rest again. When it settles, there's a low, satisfying thump, like a door closing, like something being accepted. Later, While inspecting the western slope, you come across a strange repair from weeks ago. A patch filled with broken pottery shards, packed tightly with mud and fiber. It holds surprisingly well. One of the overseers shrugs and says, "Use what you have." You realize some of those pots might have once held offerings or onions or beer. Now they're holding up a pyramid. Somehow it fits. The wind grows stronger by midday. Workers wrap cloth over their heads and faces. The polishers retreat to lower sections, where the dust isn't as abrasive. You see oxen being led away from the upper ramps. Smart. Animals don't fare well in windstorms. Neither do men, if they're not careful. You're moved to the shade of a temporary scaffolding to inspect stone tools. It's a welcome change, less lifting, more sharpening. You run sandstone across copper chisels, feeling for the edge with your thumb. Not too sharp, not too dull. Just enough bite to catch limestone without slipping. There's a rhythm to it. Scrape, test, wipe, repeat. Some of the older tools bear names carved into their handles markings left behind by men who may have died years ago. You wonder if your own name might end up on one someday. Historians still puzzle over the variety of tools used in pyramid construction. Copper chisels, stone pounders, dolerite balls. Many believe specialized crews were responsible for maintenance, ensuring every edge was keen and every handle uncracked. Standing here with a line of tired tools and a growing pile of copper shavings at your feet, you begin to understand why. There's a moment of excitement when a small cache of tools is found buried near the base of the southern ramp, wrapped in linen, stored in a hollow behind a block, likely forgotten or intentionally stashed. One of the foremen pulls out a mallet with a carved falcon on its hilt and holds it aloft. Cheers erupt. Someone suggests it's a blessing from Horus. Someone else bets it's just old. Still, it's kept aside, polished, and displayed on a stone ledge where everyone can see it. Later that evening, a worker swears he saw it glow slightly. No one believes him, but no one argues either. As the sun begins to lower, the wind takes on a meaner edge. Tools clang louder. People speak less. Dust sticks to sweat, turning skin into sandpaper. You pack up early, sensing that even the foremen know when to quit. The pyramid will be here tomorrow. Better not to lose a man today for the sake of one more stone. You take a longer route back to camp, skirting around the east face. From this angle, you can see the wear on the lower tiers, the places most walked, most touched. The stones there are smoother now, almost glossy from countless hands in sandals. You place your palm against one. It's warm, not from the sun, but from memory. As you descend the last slope, you spot a strange sight: a child standing perfectly still near a stack of unused blocks, arms raised like a bird mid-flight. You approach slowly, expecting them to run. Instead, the child turns and says, "I'm pretending to be the pyramid." You smile, confused. "Why?" you ask. They shrug. "Because it never falls." That night, the wind howls harder. Your tent flaps like a sail, trying to leave the earth. You curl under your blanket, the falcon token still tied around your wrist, and listen to the strange music of stone and sand colliding outside. The pyramid doesn't move. It endures. And in that stillness, you find something like comfort. The wind passes in the night, slipping away like a thief. You wake to stillness, eerily quiet after the storm's rasping song. The camp is coated in a thin film of dust, like someone dragged a giant brush dipped in ochre across the whole landscape. Workers shuffle around in silence, rubbing grit from their eyes and tools, their movements slow but determined. The pyramid, as ever, stands untouched. It always seems cleaner than everything else, as if the sand respects it too much to cling. Today's work takes you higher than ever before. The ramps have extended, narrowed, woven into increasingly complex spirals that wind up the pyramid's flanks. Each layer rises faster now. The base took years. These upper tiers seem to stack themselves overnight. You climb with care, gripping ropes when available, and avoiding loose stones underfoot. The view changes with every step. From here, the Nile is a silver thread. The workers' village, a scattering of dust-colored domes. Even the stone quarries look like gouges made by fingernails on the earth's crust. Your task is load balancing, assisting a team that hoists granite support beams up these treacherous ramps. No oxen this time. Just men, levers, pulleys, and a stubborn refusal to accept gravity's argument. The beams are long, heavy, and unforgiving. One slip, and the block goes tumbling along, with anyone unlucky enough be in its path. The ramps here are narrower, the edges poorly guarded. No one jokes up here. You take your position at the pulley station, helping guide the ropes as others below pull in rhythm. The system is deceptively simple. A series of wooden wheels mounted on vertical scaffolding, lubricated with animal fat, creak and groan under the strain. The beam rises slowly, swinging slightly in the breeze. You hold your breath until it passes your level and is gently guided into place by the top team. Once it settles, you climb higher to assist in positioning. The space up here is tight, barely a man's width between stones and sky. You crouch, using a wooden wedge to level the beam, while a foreman checks alignment with a copper plumb line. A slight correction is made, then another, and finally the signal. A quiet nod. The crew exhales. You sit back against the stone, heart pounding not from fear, but from effort. It takes hours to set one beam correctly. There are dozens more to go. But the closer the pyramid comes to completion, the more each stone feels like an offering. There's an odd ritual the crew follows up here. After setting a beam, they tap it gently 3 times with a short wooden mallet. Not for function. There's no sound being tested. It's symbolic, a gesture of approval, or maybe apology. The foreman says it wakes the stone. During your short break, you watch a falcon circle overhead. Not a metaphorical one, a real bird, soaring above the structure as if inspecting the geometry. The workers take it as a good sign. A few even whisper thanks under their breath. You do too, just in case. You're tasked next with assisting a stone shifter, a wiry man whose job is to adjust large casing blocks by millimeters until they align flush with those below. It's delicate work, requiring slivers of copper, ropes looped around stakes, and a sort of gentle persuasion. He works with the stone like it's alive, coaxing rather than forcing. When you ask him how long he's been doing it, he just replies, "Since the pharaoh had no beard." By midday, your arms are leaden. Your lips are chapped. You drink water from a clay flask that tastes of dust and old beeswax, then lie flat on a half-set layer to let your body cool. The sun is high, the pyramid now casting barely any shadow. This is the moment you realize you're standing on what will soon be the summit. There's no formal ceremony, no declaration, but everyone seems to feel it. The top layers are near. The scaffolding squeaks as new beams are hauled up. Workers move with reverence. The foremen speak more softly. Even Kenty, usually brash, walks carefully now. Historians still argue about how the pyramid was capped, whether a golden pyramidion was hoisted with final ropes, or placed in pieces and assembled like a puzzle. Some say it was never added, stolen before it could be installed. Others insist it's buried nearby, waiting to be rediscovered. Up here, with your hands on the final layers, the truth feels less important than the weight of each stone. Whether capped or not, the top is sacred. In the late afternoon, a man slips. His sandal catches on an uneven ridge, and he tumbles forward. He doesn't fall. He lands hard against the stone face, groaning, arm bloodied. But the entire crew freezes. For a long moment, the only sound is the wind. Then, quietly, 4 men help him to his feet and guide him down the slope. The rest of you go back to work. More careful now, more aware. The pyramid may not kill you outright, but it demands everything. As the sun begins to fall, the day's final beam is positioned. You help wedge it into place, hands sticky with sap and sweat. When it finally settles, the foreman whispers something under his breath. You don't catch it, but you nod anyway. It feels like a prayer. Descending is harder than climbing. Your legs tremble, your sandals slip. At one point, a gust nearly sends your hat flying. You let it go. The pyramid can have it. It's earned more from you than that already. Back in camp, the others are quieter than usual. No songs, no boasts, just weary eyes and grateful gulps of water. Someone mentions the view from the top, the falcon overhead, the strange peace that settled up there. Others nod, then fall into their mats like felled trees. You lie awake a little longer, staring at the stars. The summit is within reach. Tomorrow, or the next day, or the one after, it will be complete. But you already feel different, lighter, even as your body aches, as if the pyramid, inching toward heaven, is slowly taking part of you with it. The final ramp is gone. You blink in disbelief as you approach the worksite the next morning. Where yesterday there was a spiraling path of timber and packed clay winding up the pyramid's shoulder, today there is nothing. The slope is bare stone, sunlit and still, as if the ramp had never been there. You feel briefly disoriented, like arriving at your home only to find the door missing. The word spreads quickly. The final layer is complete. The stone layers have reached their apex. From here, there will be no more ascending blocks, no more oxen dragging carts, no more ropes cutting into sun-browned skin. You've reached the ceiling of the world, and the only thing left to do is make it shine. Today, you polish. The uppermost tiers are already smooth to the eye, but not yet to the touch. And that matters, especially now that the cap is in place. The gold-covered pyramidion, just as the architects promised, sits proudly at the top, a burnished beacon that catches the sun and throws it in all directions. You never saw it hoisted. No one did. It was done in silence by a special team, while most workers were kept away. When you arrived this morning, it was simply there. Some say the pharaoh himself oversaw it, whispering prayers as the final seams were sealed with fine gypsum mortar. Others claim it was placed by night, under stars, guided by priests using sacred chants and celestial calculations. One man swears he saw it glow before dawn. Another insists it hummed. You don't know what to believe, but you do know the stone around it must now be worthy of its presence. You're handed a polishing stone and a bag of sand. No elaborate tools, just your hands, your sweat, and the knowledge that the surface you're smoothing will meet the sun for centuries. You kneel near the peak and begin the work, pressing your weight into each stroke, circular and firm, until the grains cut into the limestone and reveal the smooth face beneath. The wind is constant here, not violent, just present. It whispers in your ears and carries the scent of copper, sweat, and something faintly sweet resin, maybe from the workers who burn incense below in quiet reverence. You don't talk. No one does. There's a kind of hush that has settled over the top of the pyramid. The laughter and banter of the lower levels are gone, replaced by a collective awareness that this place is now sacred. There's a boy barely 12, maybe less, who polishes beside you. His fingers are blistered, his cheeks freckled with sun. He doesn't speak, but his eyes are wide with awe. Every few minutes, he looks toward the pyramidion as if expecting it to move. You feel the same. It seems impossible that something so perfect could remain still. After hours of polishing, your arms burn. The limestone has worn through your cloth wraps. Your fingertips are raw, but the stone beneath them shines, not like gold, not like water, but like time itself, smooth, inevitable, enduring. During your break, you're invited to join a small group of workers sitting cross-legged just below the peak. They pass around a bowl of dates and a flask of cooled beer. No one says much. Instead, they watch the desert. From here, you can see far beyond the quarries, beyond the camps, even beyond the first bend of the river. The land rolls and fades, golden and endless. You realize how high you are, how far you've come. One of the men pulls a small clay figurine from his pouch and places it gently on the polished stone. "For the gods," he mutters. Another places a lock of hair wrapped in linen. You offer nothing, but only because you've already given so much. Your sweat is in this stone, your breath, your hours. If the gods demand more, they'll have to speak up. Scholars still puzzle over what happened to the laborers once the pyramid was complete. Were they dismissed with honor, even land or coin, or simply absorbed into new projects? Some theories suggest a grand ceremony. Others claim nothing marked the end, no feast, no monument, just silence. But standing here, near the apex, you know that whatever came after, this was the moment that mattered. As the sun begins to dip, its rays catch the pyramidion just right. The entire structure seems to shimmer. Light floods down its flanks like honey poured from heaven. Even the workers below pause, shielding their eyes and turning upward. The stone beneath your knees glows faintly. You feel warm not from the sun, but from something deeper, something earned. That night, there's a gathering at the base. Not an official feast, not anything formal. Just people, workers, friends, sitting in circles, sharing food, stories, silence. Someone sings. Not a work chant, but a lullaby. A woman dances with her child in her arms. An old man plays a flute made from reed. You chew roasted onions and sweet bread, your hands still streaked with pale limestone dust. Someone mentions the word done. Another laughs and says, "Not yet. There are always more pyramids, more tombs, more stone to pull from the earth and stack toward the stars. But not like this. Not this one." As the firelight flickers, you lie back in the sand, eyes fixed on the starlit tip of the pyramid rising above you. The gold peak catches the last light of dusk and glows like a second moon. You close your eyes, listening to the wind, the fire, the quiet breathing of thousands who built something bigger than themselves. Tomorrow you'll clean, maybe pack, maybe wait for the next assignment. But tonight, the pyramid is whole, and you are part of it. The camp begins to change. Not in any dramatic way. There's no great announcement, no trumpet echoing from the Nile, but in the small telling details that whisper of endings. Tools are returned to storerooms instead of slung over shoulders. The water boys linger, unsure whether to fill skins for the next shift. Even the goats, somehow, seem less chaotic. A strange quiet settles in, not restful but uncertain, like a held breath before something important. You've been reassigned again, not to the ramps or polishing tiers, but to the base of the pyramid, helping document the finished work. A team of scribes has arrived, their arms heavy with scrolls and measuring cords. You recognize one or two from previous visits, but now they're here in full force. This is the final tally. Every stone, every layer, every measurement must be recorded. Not just for posterity, you're told, but for the gods. You don't write, but you carry the rods, hold the plumb bobs, and sometimes shade the papyrus as a scribe scratches lines in the noon light. One of them hums constantly tuneless low, like a bee that's forgotten its own song. Another mumbles as he works, repeating numbers under his breath until they settle into place like stones. It's oddly calming. You begin to enjoy this rhythm of precision, of finality. At the same time, a smaller crew is assigned to what they call the sealing team. They're preparing the inner corridors for permanent closure. You've worked those spaces before tight and cool, deep in the belly of the monument. But this time, no one will be allowed back inside. The pharaoh has not yet been placed within, but the passageways are being cleaned, smoothed, emptied of tools, and prepared for rituals. You help carry baskets of sand and pigment down into the sloping passage. The air grows colder with every step. Candles flicker in wall recesses. The echoes here are long and strange. You pass hieroglyphs painted in fresh ochre, some glowing faintly in the torchlight protective spells, prayers, directions for the soul's journey. One image shows a great boat sailing across stars. Another, a jackal-headed figure weighing a heart against a feather. You try not to linger. Back at the surface, the scribes ask you to measure the southern base stones. You kneel and hold the cord taut between two casing blocks while they note the result. They mutter about precision, about angles, about how these measurements will inform future temples, future tombs, maybe even cities. One scribe says this structure will last for 1,000 generations. The others scoff, but then they nod. There's still work being done on the plaza, a wide, ceremonial space being cleared in front of the pyramid's base. No one knows whether it will be used for public rites or kept sacred and closed. A row of palm trunks is laid along one edge, possibly to hold banners or mark processional routes. You help dig shallow trenches for them. The soil here surprisingly dark, damp from an old flood channel. While digging, your shovel hits something hard. You kneel and uncover it gently. A bowl, simple, unpainted, but unbroken. Someone suggests it was an offering buried early in construction, forgotten beneath the shifting sand. You lift it out and hold it up. It smells faintly of dates and ash. The foreman says to give it to the priests. You do, but not before tracing its rim once with your thumb. That evening, the mood shifts again. Not celebration, more like reflection. The workers gather on the slope near the lowest tier. Someone brings out an old drum. Not the loud, thumping work rhythm drum, but a smaller one, carved with lotus petals. The beat is slow. Someone else sings a hymn you haven't heard before. It has no chorus, no real melody, just a rising and falling of notes like wind through reeds. You close your eyes and feel the pyramid behind you. Enormous, quiet, full. There's a debate among modern scholars about whether the pyramid served as a temple as well as a tomb. Some argue it was purely functional, a tomb sealed and forgotten. Others suggest it was visited, prayed to, maintained as a kind of spiritual beacon. Up close, it feels like both. Sacred, yes, but also strangely intimate, like something alive. You sit near the edge of the workers' camp, watching the stars rise. A few priests walk along the path, carrying small braziers. One stops, touches the pyramid's face, and murmurs something you can't hear. Then he walks on. Someone behind you whispers that tomorrow will be the final blessing. The pharaoh's body is not yet placed, but the structure will be formally given over to the gods. After that, the sealing will begin in earnest. The ramps are already gone, the tools packed, the stones dusted and aligned like soldiers awaiting inspection. And what of you? You wonder this quietly, turning a piece of gravel between your fingers. Some workers talk of returning to their farms, their villages. Others hope to be chosen for the next project. There's rumor of a new temple near Thebes, or a monument by the river delta. One man says he's done. He's going to sell onions. No one laughs. You lie back, arms crossed behind your head. The pyramid rises above, its shadow stretching across the sand like the arm of a sleeping giant. The air is still warm from the day, but cooling quickly. You hear the river, far off. You hear footsteps. You hear nothing. In this moment, you don't need to know what comes next, because for now, you have built something that will outlast you. And that is enough. The morning air feels different, lighter, somehow, as if the weight of months has been lifted. You notice the workers moving with a quiet urgency, but also a gentle tenderness, as if saying goodbye to an old friend. The camps are abuzz with whispered stories of ceremonies, offerings, and final blessings that will mark the pyramid's transition from a construction site to a sacred tomb. You are chosen to carry one of the last loads of incense and oils up the western ramp, now carefully cleared and polished for the occasion. The scent of myrrh and frankincense fills your nostrils, mingling with the familiar dusty aroma of limestone and sweat. It's the smell of devotion, of reverence of things that will last far beyond mortal hands. As you ascend, you pass workers laying final touches on the plaza, arranging garlands and weaving palm fronds into delicate patterns. Nearby, children from the worker village gather to watch, their eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. They mimic the gestures of the priests, pretending to hold staffs and chanting silent hymns. When you reach the summit, a group of priests awaits. Their faces are calm and serious beneath the painted masks of gods, falcon heads, jackals, and cobras. They begin the rituals, burning incense, pouring libations, chanting prayers that seem to echo beyond the walls of the pyramid and into the desert sky. You watch as a priest holds up a golden ankh, the symbol of life, and traces it slowly over the polished stones. The pyramid gleams under the sun's gaze, reflecting light like a mirror to the heavens. You feel a shiver run down your spine, as if the stones themselves are awakening, acknowledging the passage from mere monument to eternal sanctuary. There's a moment when the wind stills completely a hush over the land that feels sacred and profound. The chants soften, The incense smoke curls higher, and for a heartbeat, you believe the pharaoh's spirit is listening. Somewhere deep within the pyramid, the sealed chambers rest patiently, awaiting their occupant. After the rituals, the workers gather to share a simple feast: flatbread, roasted figs, and watered-down beer. Stories flow freely, laughter returns, and for the first time in weeks, you sense celebration. A few even dance, their movements loose and joyous, shadows flickering against the glowing stone. One elder pulls you aside, pressing a small pouch into your palm. Inside, you find a handful of finely crushed lapis lazuli. For protection, he says quietly, for your journey home. As night falls, the pyramid stands silhouetted against a star-studded sky, its golden cap reflecting the distant light of Orion. You lie on the warm sand, the pouch heavy in your pocket, and watch as the desert breathes around you. Historians still debate what this final ceremony meant to the workers and priests. Was it a farewell, a blessing, or perhaps a binding contract between the living and the divine? Whatever the answer, you feel the weight of that day settling deep inside you, a quiet echo that will last long after the stones have cooled. You close your eyes, the lapis warm against your palm, and drift into sleep beneath the eternal gaze of the pyramid you helped build. The sun rises softly, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the desert floor. You awaken to a stillness so profound, it almost feels like the world is holding its breath. The pyramid stands before you complete, majestic, eternal, its polished faces catching the first golden rays and setting them ablaze in a silent, radiant hymn. Today is a day without work. No hauling, no chiseling, no polishing. Instead, it's a day of quiet reflection, a moment to pause before life moves on. The camps are unusually calm. Men sit together, their conversations low and gentle, sharing stories of days spent beneath the blazing sun and nights under endless stars. Children run through the dust, their laughter light and free, a sharp contrast to the weight of the stones that surround them. You wander the perimeter one last time, touching the smooth limestone that still hums faintly beneath your fingertips. The scent of resin and earth lingers, mingling with the crisp desert air. Somewhere nearby, a falcon calls, its sharp cry cutting through the stillness, a reminder that life soars above even the heaviest burdens. As you walk, you think back over the months, each stone lifted, each rope pulled, every bead of sweat and whispered prayer. The endless repetition, the aching muscles, the camaraderie and solitude, all woven into this living monument. The pyramid is more than a tomb. It is a testament to human will, to belief, to the unyielding desire to reach beyond mortality. Historians debate whether the pyramid's true power lay in its physical presence or in the rituals and stories that surrounded it. Perhaps it is both. You realize that the pyramid is not simply stone and mortar, but a living memory carried forward by every hand that touched it. As the sun climbs higher, you settle on a smooth slab at the base and close your eyes. The heat seeps into your skin, mingling with the coolness of the stone beneath you. You breathe in the timeless air, feel the pulse of history beneath your hands, and let your mind drift. The world moves slowly here, but it moves. Tomorrow, you will return to the village, to family, to simpler tasks. But a part of you will remain etched in the stone, carried by the wind, whispered in the sands. You smile softly, imagining future generations gazing up at this towering masterpiece, wondering who built it, why, and how. And maybe, just maybe, imagining a weary worker like you hands rough and heart full, who once climbed these stones to touch the sky. The desert stretches endlessly around you, warm and still. The pyramid rises silently beside you, eternal and unyielding. And as your breath slows and the day fades gently, you drift toward sleep wrapped in stone, sand, and the quiet hum of history itself. The sun's warmth slowly fades as evening settles over the desert. The air cools gently, wrapping you in a calm embrace that seems to soften even the hardest stones beneath you. The pyramid stands tall and silent, its silhouette fading into the twilight like a quiet guardian watching over the sands. You breathe deeply, feeling the rhythm of the earth slow to match your own. The dust that once irritated your throat now feels like a gentle veil, dusting your skin with the stories of labor and time. Everything moves with a softer pace here. The rush of the day dissolves into the whispers of the wind, the distant call of a night bird, the faint crackle of embers from the last campfire. The monumental work you helped build no longer feels like a burden, but a gift. A bridge between earth and sky, past and future. The stones beneath your hands are warm from the sun's parting light, yet they promise coolness in the coming night. In this stillness, you sense the presence of countless souls who touched this place, the workers, the priests, the pharaoh himself, and feel connected to something larger than yourself. The relentless sun, the shifting sands, the endless sky, all hold their breath with you as you rest. Your eyes grow heavy, the desert's hush wrapping tighter like a soft blanket. The pyramid's golden peak fades into darkness, yet its memory glows bright inside you, a gentle pulse of history that will carry you through dreams and beyond. Now, let your breath slow, your thoughts drift, and your body surrender to the quiet calm of the night. The journey ends here, but the story lives on, whispered softly by stone, sand, and time. Sleep well.